4, Lesson 15. Our objective is to classify quadrilaterals based on parallel and perpendicular lines and the presence or absence of angles of a specific size. Okay, so these will look familiar to you. All of these shapes are trapezoids. What defines a trapezoid? A trapezoid are shapes that have two lines that are parallel. So this trapezoid is something that looks familiar to you because this is what's in our pattern blocks. The ticks show where the two lines are that are parallel. This looks very close to a square. It is not. You'll notice that this angle is kind of going off to the side a little bit, but it does have two parallel lines. Here's another shape that might look familiar to you. It also has two parallel lines. And then we get into two familiar shapes. Yes, a rectangle is a trapezoid. And why is a rectangle a trapezoid? Because a rectangle has two lines that are parallel. A parallelogram is also considered a trapezoid. It also has two lines that are parallel. What makes them another shape is that they have two sets of parallel lines. So they have this set of parallel lines, and they also have this set of parallel lines. Okay? That makes them a parallelogram. So a parallelogram is a shape that has two sets of parallel lines. It's what we would consider a special trapezoid. So you see a square is a parallelogram, two sets of parallel lines. A rectangle is a parallelogram. It has two sets of parallel lines. And this familiar shape, we can call it a parallelogram. We can also call it a rhombus, depending on how stretched out and does it have that line of symmetry. Which brings us to rectangles. Rectangles are what we would call shapes that have two sets of parallel lines. So we can see our sets of parallel lines. It also has four right angles. Rectangles are parallelograms and trapezoids. A square is a rectangle. It has two sets of parallel lines and four right angles. A square. A square is a special rectangle. All sides equal the same. So the difference between a rectangle and a square is that a square's lines are all the same length. These are quadrilaterals. Quadrilaterals are shapes that have four sides and at least one set of parallel lines. So we have trapezoids, two lines that are parallel. Parallelograms, two sets of parallel lines, a special trapezoid. Rectangles, two sets of parallel lines, four right angles. These are also parallelograms and trapezoids. And a square is just a special rectangle. That means it's also a parallelogram as well as a trapezoid. These are all quadrilaterals. You're going to be doing your own drawing. Okay? So your first problem set is to construct quadrilaterals with at least one set of parallel sides. What are those? Those are our trapezoids. So look at a trapezoid, draw a trapezoid. You have a quadrilateral that has a four-sided shape with one set of parallel lines. You could also draw one of our parallelograms. It is also a trapezoid. It's a four-sided shape with at least one set of parallel lines. You could draw rectangles. It's a four-sided shape with at least one set of parallel lines. You could draw a square. Four-sided shape, one set of parallel lines, at least. The next one is to construct a quadrilateral with two sets of parallel lines. Your parallelograms, rectangles, squares. Construct a parallelogram with four right angles, rectangles, squares. Construct a rectangle with all sides that are the same length. That is your square. Then they're going to give you some shapes. You're naming each shape and explain what makes a square and a special rectangle, what makes a rectangle a special parallelogram, and explain the attributes that makes a parallelogram a special trapezoid. Okay, good luck, Nighthawks.